Welcome to another episode of One-on-One with Mitch Lafon. This is a special video edition featuring bassist Gary Shea of Alcatrazz and New England fame. Let's not delay. Let's get right into it. Here is Gary Shea. We are speaking with Gary Shea of Cooper Shea, but folks might know him from Alcatrazz, New England, and even Warrior with everybody's favorite Vinnie Vincent. So
yeah,
lots of history there. As I was telling you, Gary, before we got started, you are the first band that I ever saw perform. My first show, August 6, 1979, Montreal Forum, Kiss Dynasty Tour. And you were the first band that appeared on stage. My, how old was I then? My 10-year-old self was like, what do you mean there's no Kiss? Who are these guys? But as I look back now, it was a great time to see you guys first, but we'll talk about that after. Let's get to the new album with D.H.
Okay.
Cooper. D.H. has done, of course, some stuff with Herman Rarebell from the Scorpions. Partners in Time. Tell me about getting this band together and why you wanted to get back into it and make music and the whole thing.
Well, back in 1972, I left Boston, dropped out of the Berklee School of Music to go to London and join bands.
Right.
Eventually, I hooked up with David Cooper and Herman Rarebell and Peter French,
Right.
who had just got done singing for Cactus when they took off to play with Jeff Beck.
Right.
Peter came back to England and joined a bunch of 21-year-old goof-offs from America and Germany. And we rehearsed, and Robert Stigwood was behind us at the time, which is a big deal. And we rehearsed, and we started to record. And right in the middle of that, both Herman and I got letters from the Home Office saying, please leave England, your visas are no good, and if you don't leave, you're in big trouble. So I left and went back to Boston, and Herman went to Germany and became a member of the Scorpions. I eventually became a member of the group New England.
Right.
And so recently, and then during the 80s, when Alcatrazz was up and running, Herman did a solo record called Herman's the German.
Yep.
And David plays on that. And I was supposed to play some tracks on that also, but that never came together because of the Alcatrazz tour schedule at the time. And
Herman the German album, that had Don Dokken on it too, I believe, right?
yeah, a whole bunch of guys, the whole LA scene at the time. And I was saying to Herman, give me David's phone number back in the days of phone numbers, you know. And
Yeah.
and anyway, we lost touch. And about a year and a half ago, he contacted me and he said, hey, what's happening? And we started talking, and he said, you know, I got some songs that are unfinished. Would you mind putting a bass on a song or two? And we did, and we liked the way it sounds. This is great. This is what we were doing way back when. And you can never talk about music. You have to hear it. And all these years, I told people I was in this particular band, but there was never any music to play. And so we decided to do a whole CD. And David and Herman had done a few things. So Herman's playing drums on a couple of tracks, and Peter has also been a good friend, and he sang on a couple of tracks for us as well. So the four of us were back together again for the first time since 1972, and that's why it's called Partners in Time.
Yeah. And so what is the plan for the album? Or I mean, is it just the album's out and that's it, or is there going to be a second one, a third one, a tour? I mean, is it a whole project moving forward?
No, because everyone's in other bands.
Right.
And just the logistics of that is just hard. With David being in London, I just moved to Florida. Herman's on tour with Michael Schenker.
Yeah.
He was in a band called Lafon that plays regularly in England. So it's more of a recording project. But we do hope next year, in 2016, to make another record. We're working on a couple of tracks right now for that. So it'll be a second record, but not touring.
Yeah, and good. And in fact, I have a Herman interview coming up shortly. I spoke to him recently, and I would like to get Michael Schenker on here too. But I'm glad to see that you're still making music. And of course, New England has been doing shows recently.
Right.
How has that been? Because you took, 35 years off kind of thing before you started doing those shows again. How was that to hop back in there? And
that was great. I mean, it was, again, unfinished business. And my kids never saw us play, and they got a chance to see the band play, which is great. We We got back together again in 2004, did some recording, and then 05 and 06 we did some live gigs, and then just recently, the last two
couple of years, yeah,
done some more concerts and put out some new music for the first time, which is now on vinyl, which is kind of a cool thing. So now we have a vinyl release plus the digital release, and we're still working on some more songs for that. So that's another situation where, again, Jimmy lives in Los Angeles, I'm in Florida, those guys are in Massachusetts, and it's hard to get together to do things, and it's hard to do it on the telephone. And if you're in the room, you say, you know, cut the guitar and finish it.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, these days you can do all this Pro Tool stuff and send a WAV file, and you know, the days of four guys in a studio are almost passe. I mean, they're not totally passe, but you've gotten to that point where you can all be one in Australia, one in Japan, and all right. So
while in the same room, though, things click so much quicker. You say, change that, do this, how about this, what about that, and boom, boom, boom. And when you do an email, it's like, what do you mean by that? You know, if say on a phone, it's different. And we did get back together in last fall to record the new song, just specifically for that, just to come back after we'd done playing. We came back to Massachusetts again and recorded, and it just went really quick. Just, you know, 2 days of boom, boom, done, both songs. And that was great. And that's because we were all in the same room together. Wish we could have done a record, a whole album in the 2 days. But
that would be very old school. That would be almost like Sabbath on their first album, right? 9 hours and let's go get it out. But
we did the third New England album was done at Todd Rundgren's house, and the whole thing was done and mastered in 52 hours.
Wow.
We never wrote this. We wrote the songs the week before in his warehouse in Poughkeepsie, and went to his house and up in Mink Hollow and recorded it in just 5 days. All the bass and drums were the first take, no mistakes. With Todd, was, you know, play it right the first time, old school. There was no snipping of tapes and 27 takes, and everyone can sit around and argue about it times 9 guys.
Nothing was comped, everything was done. When you do a situation like that, it requires you to rehearse before and practice, where you don't just show up and say, okay, we're going to plug in. And
Right. So when New England was up and running, we were very, very well oiled. We'd been together for 5 years, played every day for 5 years. And we had been on tour at that point across North America for 4 months. And we just didn't even go home. We went right to Todd's house and started making another record, living in a hotel and just go for it. And that's the Walking Wild album. So kind of proud of the fact that it went so quickly and it went so well. And Todd's a great guy. And I thought, oh, God, here's where, you know, all the things can go wrong.
Yeah, so let's talk about all of this stuff. So let me go back to my first time. August 6, 1979. I show up at the Montreal Forum. You guys are on the Kiss tour, the Kiss Dynasty tour. How was that for you? Was it a good tour? Were they gracious? Did you get full lights, full stage? Or was it one of these like, oh, God, here we go. We're going to have to play in the dark and use one mic and, you know.
No, I mean, you never get full lights and full sound, no matter who you play with, if you're a supporting act. But they were gracious, and we were managed by the same person, Bill Aucoin, who signed the band a year earlier. Paul Stanley worked on our first album as a producer, more along a coaching kind of thing. Right. And we had already done a Journey AC/DC tour before we hooked up with Kiss for 27 shows. And we were out with Styx in Kansas before that. Wow. So by the time we got with Kiss the summer of '79, we were doing okay with the large venue thing and all that. And we did great. We were playing all over the place. We got to play Madison Square Garden, which was a big thing for us. Yep. And I used to get kicked out of high school saying, I'm going to play this someday, leave me alone.
Yeah, you got to play like literally about a week before I saw you. It was end of July, I believe.
Yeah, 2 nights.
So now the Montreal show was your last show on that tour.
Yeah, very historical moment.
Yeah, so explain to me what happened, because I recall the crowd had been very boisterous. They were very loud. There was a general excitement about the entire evening.
Right. It was amazing. We didn't realize that Hirsch Gardner, our drummer, is Canadian from Toronto. Right. And we had gone to Toronto and done a lot of radio things with CHUM in both Toronto and Montreal. We rented out a Maserati dealership at a big party. It was a fun time. 4 months before we went on tour, and we were doing the Kiss tour. It was going great, and we were geeked. And we came out on stage that night. We didn't realize that Kiss hadn't sold out in Montreal because of the solo albums and the downtime they had. And when they announced we were the other band, they sold 8,000 tickets and the show sold out. So we came out that night to play. As we got on the stage, the whole place stood up like they just scored a hockey goal. Went crazy.
Yeah, and I can, I can testify to that. It's true. They went nuts.
Yeah, it was like goal. And we remember being like 40 feet away from John across the stage and stood there my whole life going, wow, check this out. It was amazing. Everyone was just clapping like it was an encore. And down in the orchestra pit was Gene with his notepad and all that. And
did he do that often? Did he come out with his notepad and?
Oh, he's always thinking. He's a thinking guy.
Right, of course.
And we all are, but he's known for that. And the next day was announced we're off the tour.
Right. Which
was a drag because we were planning it. A show in Springfield, Massachusetts was scheduled for the following week, which is going to be big time for us. All our relatives, guest list of 200 people probably. Right. And it got blown out of the water. We played in some theater with a day's notice, advertising to about 3 people, and went home to the next tour.
But was it? Did the band think they were being upstaged and they didn't want to sort of lose the spotlight?
Yeah, we're just doing great. We got encores all the time. We got encores in New York City, which is really hard. Most bands that play in New York City in front just get rocks tossed at them, and bad vibes and booing and all that stuff. And that didn't happen. People loved the band, and a lot of people like yourself were new to the band and sat there and went, "Oh, this is interesting."
Yep.
And the band was good and it was different. It wasn't, to us, it was a little bit more of the average band that you'd see. When you see a new band, you listen to them and go, wow, what's this? I think we kept people's interest for our set. Some bands you kind of drift off maybe, but
right, you take a tea break. Let's be honest.
And Gene just announced that they were not happening. And even though we sold 8,000 tickets and we were off the tour, and that was it. Left-handed compliment. And we never delved more into it about it. Just that's the way it was. And we were planning on starting our second record right after that. So we just went right to the recording studio and began work for the second album.
Explorer Suite, yeah. So talk to me about how does Bill Aucoin find you? I mean, he had, of course, later found Billy Idol. He had Kiss, which was the hottest property at the time. Where does New England come in? Does he just show up in a bar accidentally and find you and say, hey, you guys are good? Or how does that come about?
I had a friend who was a photographer who knew a guy from Elektra Records in New England. And he helped get the cars signed and was friends with Queen. And he had our demo. He went to a Kiss concert, played it for some Bill Aucoin's guys backstage. And they went, whoa, who are these guys? And our friend from Elektra Records said he was going to quit his job and be our manager. And we're the next big thing out of Massachusetts. And the New York guys asked if they could come see us. And we got a phone call saying the guys want to come over in the morning and hear you. And we said, sure, bring them over. And we did. It went great. And the next week, Bill Aucoin came up with the rest of his staff and said he was very interested in managing the band. At that time, we had Clive Davis calling us to sign to Arista without having a manager. He was calling us directly. And we had a few other things.
It's not a bad phone call to take right there.
Hold for Clive.
No, yeah. Hold for Clive. Yeah, that's...
It was surreal. And most people may not know his name that aren't musicians, but he's Mr. Big when it comes to, if there's anybody Mr. Big, he'd be the guy, I think.
If not the biggest, yeah. I mean,
Hold for Clive. He's calling the kitchen phone.
I mean, he's an icon maker. I mean, he's created.
So Bill Aucoin jumped in as our manager.
Okay.
Clive came up to see us. We had 6 presidents come see us. And we made a decision who we were going to go with, which was a new company run by Ron Alexenberg, who had been the president of Epic Records for 15 years and signed Janis Joplin and Jeff Beck and a lot of things, and had all this money to make a new company. We thought this is a good opportunity for us, and we did.
Right, because you'd be front and center. You'd be like the new toy that everybody has to. Right.
If you're on Columbia, they got 30 albums a week coming out. Maybe you're one of them.
Right, you're the focus. So that's a smart move.
Right, and there was distribution questions about some of the labels. Chrysalis wanted us. Chris Wright, the president of Chrysalis, told us we were the best band he's ever seen since he discovered Procol Harum. And I'm walking across the grass going, "Yeah, sure."
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Won't believe it. But it was great. They were saying those things, and they wanted to sign the band very badly. And Clive said they had the Kinks. They wanted a heavy band, and we were the band. And the Elektra Records, same thing. Said we signed the Cars. They're kind of arty, but they're not heavy. When another band like Queen, an American band like Queen, we see you guys as filling that bill. And so the ball started just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so we signed the record deal and off to L.A., London, and New York to do that first record, and came out of the chute running and hit the top 40 and got kicked off the Kiss tour eventually.
But okay, so how is it working with Bill Aucoin? Because there's a lot of talk out there that he helped maneuver Kiss to the top, that he did all kinds of showman stuff, and and was Sean Delaney involved with you as well?
Oh yeah, Sean was our coach as far as choreography goes, and we had a chance to use Pink Floyd's place to rehearse before we went on tour in Long Island. Their North American headquarters with video cameras, which back in the 70s was unheard of. And you could see yourself moving around, and Sean was a great coach, move, 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 do this, don't do that, that was stupid. And we learned, we advanced quicker than had we not done that. And Sean was great for that. And Bill Aucoin is a brilliant guy. He is the guy behind Kiss. I mean, Gene is smart and they have their band, but Bill is an entrepreneur, and he had done a lot of things in his history that were brilliant, and he's a great guy. And working with him was great. We loved him. We had a great relationship, and of course, if there's the David and Goliath school of managers. Right. You can get Mr. Big to be your manager, but in a case of like a Bill Aucoin, he's in Germany with Kiss. You can't get him on the phone. You can have your cousin be your manager, who means the best and will die for you, but he doesn't know anybody. Right. So that's the thing to weigh out there when bands look for managers. And we chose to go with that and take that gamble, which we did. And there was, of course, those situations where Bill couldn't get him on the phone or whatever. And eventually we parted ways after our just after the third album came out. Right. And it was an amicable thing. We're friends to the end, and that's just the way this is business. It was a good thing.
Well, let me ask you about that, because the third album came out in '81, and that's around the same time that Kiss decided that they were going to be done with Bill. I mean, it was 81, 82, 80, that's sort of that time there.
Right.
Was Bill just sort of tired or out of ideas, or was he,
He came out of the chute with Billy Idol. Boom.
Yeah, you've got a point. So I guess he was just looking for a newer kind of sound. So
I think Kiss just felt they could manage themselves, and why pay somebody part of what they're doing if they don't need that person. And that's what was going on when they went with their business manager, Glickman Marks.
Glickman Marks, yeah.
And that was their side of things.
So all right. So now the first album, New England. Paul Stanley is called in as the producer. Now, was he a full producer, or was he just sort of somebody who would okay the songs after they were all done?
Well, the original plan was that Brian May was going to produce us, because the guys in Elektra knew him and sent him the demo tape. Right. And it turned out he couldn't do it. He drove across London and put the demo in Mike Stone's mailbox, who was a Roy Thomas Baker person, and had just produced on his own the Queen album Jazz, which did pretty well. And he was looking to branch out as a producer, and he was in New York working on some Kiss stuff, whatever. He was in the office, and they said, "What about Michael?" And we said, "That sounds good." And they said, "What about Paul? Be like a figurehead and just help out," kind of thing, and the two of those guys. And we had really produced ourselves. All those songs had been recorded in Philadelphia prior to anybody seeing us. We just went back and redid them, mostly. We changed one or two very small things in a couple of songs, but other than that, it was the same thing, just did it over again, did it a little better maybe. Right. So Paul was a figurehead, and it was great because he was in the control room. You see him in there, and he's Paul, he's a great guy. And he was just a great coach, get that little better performance, like any coach would on a field say, run harder, kick harder, stop, do this. So he was very good for that, as a coach thing. Not so much being a producer who changes the music around and writes new parts, or like Mutt Lange pulls out the guitar and starts playing with you and say, "Here, do this."
Or Bob Ezrin, or
Right. A lot of people. who can do that. Todd Rundgren, you know, which was one of the reasons we went with Todd eventually, because he was that kind of guy. So there's two kinds of producers. There's some producers who don't even know how to play music, but they have good ears and they can produce people and bring the best out in people. Other producers are musicians that are very talented people on their own. So there's also that two schools of getting a producer. Who do you want to work with? So
you know, having worked with Paul and having Bill as the management team, when you were asked to leave the Kiss tour, were you shocked? I mean, you're like, whoa, wait a minute, we got two of the heavyweights in our corner, and now we're being sent home.
Well, it was a shock that it was like, you know, you're kidding.
Yeah, I mean, you know, how does that happen, right?
Yeah, we were shell shocked. Went home, and you know, it's like, that's just weird. So, you know, Plan B. So Plan B was to, again, we had only 2 more weeks left of gigs, and then we were planning on recording, so all that was coming into fruition and setting that the next 6 months of that up.
Right,
with Michael coming back from England, we decided on the second record already to use Michael again, and John Fannin, the guitar player for New England, be the group spokesperson. We would do it ourselves this time, just us and Michael.
Right.
Because we didn't need a producer, we thought, at that time.
Before I move on to Alcatrazz, let me just ask you this about New England. You know, Clive Davis is phoning, Todd Rundgren is producing, Bill Aucoin is there, Paul Stanley, you've got the tours, you've got the journey. Where did it go wrong? Why aren't you a band that's on your 30th, 35th anniversary tour?
It's a good point. Basically, our guitar player quit the band.
Right. I hear a pen clicking sound. Is there a... Ah, there you go. Okay.
So,
I was wondering what that was. But yeah, I mean, I know a guy quit, but, you know, replacement players come in. I mean, in Alcatrazz, you had Clive Burr from Iron Maiden. He had been replaced. And this,
right.
People come and go.
So after our 3rd album and 3rd tour, we started recording for the 4th album.
Right.
And we had another dozen songs pretty much ready to go. We'd called up Todd and said, you know, we had lost Elektra Records. We felt they weren't doing such a great job, which they didn't.
Right.
And would he be interested in doing something else with us? And he said, sure, come up here to my house. We'll do it again. And if we get a deal, he'll be the producer again. We thought, great. So that was in the bag. And then one day John walked in and said, for personal reasons, he was quitting the band. He didn't want to tour anymore and was married and all those things. And that was a bigger turn than getting kicked off the Kiss tour. That was a big deal. So now what do we do? So we talked to a lot of guitar players, and to make a long story short, we rang up the guys in Kiss, and they said they knew a guy named Vinnie Cassano, who was from Connecticut like me,
Right.
same age. And he was out in L.A. riding with them. Great guitar player. We needed somebody who could sing, play great guitar, and write songs. And it's hard to find in one person. Find a great guitar player. Jeff Beck's a great guitar player, but doesn't write songs that well, doesn't sing that well.
Right.
So it's hard to find somebody.
Which is sort of the story of Peter Townsend, right? Peter,
right?
Yeah, I can write great songs, play great, but if Roger doesn't sing them,
right?
But okay, and well, in fact, okay. Before we get to Alcatrazz, and let's talk about that. So this leads up to Warrior.
Yes.
Why the name change? Why not just have him come in and be a member of New England?
Well, we Vinnie sent us a tape of his stuff,
right?
And we thought it was great. Songs like Back on the Streets and Gypsy and things. We thought, this is great. And instead of him trying to emulate what we'd done on the 3 albums of New England, and yes, we'd be losing the groundwork that band had set up, but we felt strong enough to start a whole new band, whole new name, whole new thing, and just go on. Just move on into the future and forget it. Don't try and beat the horse that may not be worth staying with. So in a flash, we moved to Los Angeles, and Vinnie came to Boston. We learned his songs. He sent us his demo. We learned his songs. We came in at nighttime, 11 o'clock at night, and we plugged into our studio, and he couldn't believe what he heard. And he was just flipping out, going, "There's nobody in LA. Sounds like you guys. This is amazing." So we said, let's just not worry about trying to play Explorer Suite and all that stuff, and just move on to a whole new band. So we just upped and went to Los Angeles. And Jimmy, the keyboard player, had relatives out there we stay with, and we started rehearsing on spec with a lawyer backer. And Vinnie was working with us in the daytime. At nighttime, he'd be with Kiss. And then we learned a song like "I Like It Loud." And do I say this for us, or do we sell it to them? So
I Love It Loud, yeah.
Yeah. So we're learning all these songs and playing songs and planning on doing a whole new band. And because Gene told us that we could have Vinnie because he was too short to be in Kiss.
Right.
He was great, but he was too short. We could have him. I said, great. At the last minute, they decided he could be in Kiss. And it was a situation where he just had twin girls, broke, like all of us at the time. And do you want to join Kiss and make, $3,000 a week and go to Brazil tomorrow, or hope your new band gets off the ground?
Right.
So, of course, we lost Vinnie to Kiss. Anybody would have done the same thing.
Of course.
So he took off with that. And the three of us, remaining guys from New England, Jimmy Welder, the keyboard player, and I decided to stay in L.A. and play hardball. No reason to go back to Boston. Hirsch, the drummer, went back to Boston. And that leads into the Alcatrazz thing.
Right, but just before then, when you heard "I Love It Loud" for the first time and played on it or played a version of it, did you think these songs were hits? And then
Yeah.
when it came out on the Kiss thing, and here we are in 2015, and it's still being played, you go, "Oh wow, yeah, I knew it," right?
To me, it was like heavy Foreigner. It was Foreigner, radio friendly, but a little heavier. And it was right up my alley. I want to play pop music, which means popular. I don't want to be in a prog rock thing and play to three guys and
right.
Whatever.
Do you have those demos and at home of you guys doing these songs? Because you've got "Hot Nights," "Betrayed," "Baby Oh Why," "Back on the Street," "Gypsy in Her Eyes," etc., etc., etc.
There is a tape that exists of us doing those songs at the record plant in L.A.
Okay.
So that is there, out there. It's been spread around here and there, but it's never been released or anything like that. So
would you like to?
I've thought about it. But again, it's Vinnie's music and stuff, and Vinnie's having a hard time, so he's nowhere to be found. So can't really do that without him. So
it would be an interesting collector's item to have out there, or
right.
Because was it a full recording? I mean, in the sense that this was good for market, or was these just basically scratch track demos and nowhere near?
They were real 24-track. There were demos to get a deal, but they were 24-track demos.
Okay.
And we agonized over to get it right, and make it sound great. Everything we'd done at rehearsal, I mean, we were going for it. And it would be cool to see that come out as an album. And it's interesting to hear some of those songs, because when Vinnie eventually left Kiss and started his own band, The Invasion, they redid some of those songs and played them 5 times faster and screamed them. And I'm not a big fan of that. I prefer what we did before that. It's a little less screaming.
In terms of Vinnie Vincent or Vinnie Cusano at the time, there's been a lot said now that he had some issues and this, but back then, was he just a hard-working guitar player and who wrote great songs, or did you look at him and say, "Oh, I'm not so sure about this guy"?
He had issues.
Okay, always had issues. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was smoking crazy. He's got problems. He's one of those guys that can't finish anything, second guesses everything, calls you 17 times. He was calling Bill Aucoin 30 times a day. And that's when they kicked him out of the band. They said, enough. We can't just stop.
Right.
Just stop. And he got fired from Kiss, So that's his.
Which was remarkable that he got fired from them, because Creatures of the Night was a great album musically. It didn't sell so well. The tour didn't do so well. But then Lick It Up
was fantastic.
Boom, right back on the map, and you go, okay.
It's the best they ever sounded, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
They sound great. To me, that's their peak when they did with Vinnie. And Ace is a great guy, good player, but Vinnie definitely had some great songs and good singing. Vinnie's also a very good singer, which people don't realize. He can sing really well, and he sings like Lou Gramm. But he didn't want to do it live, to play lead guitar and be the singing guy. That was another issue with not doing the New England things. And we had other singers in mind at the time, although Vinnie sang on the demos.
Right.
But we were also at the same time auditioning singers to play with us. Yeah. One of which was Fergie Fredrickson, who joined Toto eventually.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into it. Let's move on then, speaking of singers. Graham Bonnet, of course, and Alcatrazz. Some of the guys you've had in that band, Yngwie Malmsteen, Steve Vai, of course, Graham himself.
Right.
Jan Uvina, if I say it
Eugene.
correctly, right, who was
Yeah.
in Alice Cooper's band. Anything that's Alice Cooper, I get excited about. So he was in Alice Cooper's band. In fact, he left Alice Cooper's band to go do Alcatrazz. So talk to me about that. Here's another band that had all this great talent, all these great people. It probably didn't do as well as it should have. I mean, by '87, the band disbanded. It should have been on the 35th anniversary tour of Alcatrazz as well, right?
Yep. Two times.
Two times, yeah. So talk to me about that. Talk to me about Yngwie Malmsteen. Yngwie, brilliant guitarist. I don't want to say he has issues, but he's known to get.
It'd be fair to say he has issues. It'd be fair to say that.
Yeah, listen, I was at the Roseland Ballroom in 2003, 2004, whatever, and I was shooting the show with a camera, and I accidentally tripped the flash, and it popped up, and I didn't take a picture, but it just popped up, and he came over, and he slapped my camera in the pit, and went, "No flash," and I was like, so, yeah, so that said, when I've interviewed him, he's been very nice, but
Boy.
how was it with you and Yngwie, or in fact, how about Graham? Underrated singer, one of the best. How was it working with these guys and getting Alcatrazz together?
Well, I remember I was driving through Laurel Canyon after the Vinnie thing, and I had no band again. I'm thinking, now what?
Yeah, well, at this point, are you thinking maybe I need to go be,
Carpentry sounds good.
should I go work at the local Ralph's or Hannaford's and just give up? I mean, are you depressed at any point?
I I gave myself facial warts from wearing a little white dots that get frozen off my face. The doctor said it's nerves. Calm down. I did. So anyway, I'm driving through Laurel Canyon. I hear "Since You've Been Gone," Rainbow, new singer, Graham Bonnet. Got rid of Ronnie Dio. I said, I like this better. And Ronnie's a great guy, great singer. Ronnie's wife eventually became the manager of Alcatrazz. So there's a whole history to that at the end of the story. But at the time, I thought, wow, this guy Graham, cool singer. And then I heard the Michael Schenker Salt Attack album, and that was really good. That's Michael Schenker's best record too, I think. Yep. And anyway, I put an ad in a paper. All my friends said I was crazy to put an ad in a local paper. And I did, and talked to a lot of people. And one night, this English guy called me up, screaming on the phone, "Who are you? Are you a bass player?" And I said, "Well, you may not have heard of us, but I was in a band called New England." And he goes, "You were at the Electric Light Orchestra show in Boston and Cambridge, Massachusetts, eating all the shrimp backstage."
Yeah.
I said, "You're right." He said he had invited us to the party. He said he was managing Graham Bonnet. His best friend, Barrymore Barlow from Tull, was going to be the drummer. Zal Clemson from Nazareth was going to be the guitar player. "Are you the bass player?" He's screaming at me through the phone. I'm going, sure. I'm the guy. It's a Friday night in L.A. That's why I'm here. Yeah, that's me. And he said, "A keyboard player?" And I said, "Yeah, I know Jimmy." So we set up a meeting on a Sunday morning at the Hyatt House on Sunset, Led Zeppelin's Riot House. Went in the bar at 11 o'clock, came out totally drunk about 2 o'clock in the afternoon on beer between the four of us. Anyway, we decided to have a band like Rainbow, like Michael Schenker, heavy band, and we'd start doing demos and getting a recording deal. And we thought, great, that's cool. I'm in. I'm going to go to England and record at Barry's house and stuff and his farm. But,
not a bad deal.
Let's go.
Yep.
And a guy from MCA that was a neighbor of Andy, who was the manager, knew us from New England. And he wanted to help us out. And he said, I knew of a label called Rockshire in Orange County. It was a subsidiary of MCA. And we wound up getting a record deal with no demo, just on who we were. They were geeked, gave us the world. And I got a phone call one night saying that Barry was going to play on the first Robert Plant solo record and wasn't going to do this project. And Zal couldn't be found somewhere in Africa on tour at Elkie Brooks. We had to find a drummer and a guitar player over the weekend or the deal's off. And now I want to jump off the porch. I'm up in the hills in Hollywood. I want to dive off the cliff of Sunset Plaza and say, end it. I'm sick of this. So that weekend we auditioned Lawrence Jubar from Wings, which nobody really knows. And here's Lawrence Jubar from Wings playing with Alcatrazz. And that was funny.
Yeah.
He's a great guitar player, great guy. But the first thing he said was, "Can you guys turn down?" Wrong.
Yeah, wrong answer.
So the manager's running around saying, "That's it. He's the guy." We're going, "He's not the guy. Wings, Rainbow, New England, I can do this." "Yeah, you can do this, but it's not the right guy." So next day, he asked some local kid in a record store who was a hot player, and he mentioned Yngwie. Excuse me. So Yngwie came down on a Sunday night and played for us and did all the Richie Blackmore stuff, had the Richie Blackmore clothes, and it was Richie 101. And I was kind of dubious, thinking it's a little too close for comfort. I think people would laugh at that, but he played great. And we decided to go for it. And so then it was the four of us. We had no drummer. Drumming thing took about another month and a half of auditions to finally nail that down. And Clive, there's a rumor that Clive Barr was in the band from Iron Maiden. That never happened. He just auditioned for us one day, and it was not anything to be considered. As well as Ainsley Dunbar.
Yeah.
We had a lot of guys.
Ainsley Dunbar was eventually considered for the Kiss spot in '92, which a lot of people don't know. He was considered to replace Eric Carr on the Revenge, but
right.
Great drummer, Ainsley.
Great drummer. I mean, he's ridiculous amount of credits. He came in, and we played on a Sunday. Went out drinking the night before, all of us, and we came in rehearsal and showed him a song. The first time around, it sounded great. The second time around, it sounded unbelievable.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there going, "Oh my God!" I mean, just perfect. The right drum fills, just
perfect,
heavy, cool. It's like, damn. But all he wanted to do was do the album and go to Japan. He wanted to be in a band, so he just wanted to get the money and kind of run thing. We thought, we're going to stick it out and find. We need a band member that can live in LA with us and do 2 or 3 records and be a band.
Right.
So we kept looking around.
And that's when Jan came in. But that's also something important to mention, though. Like when you talk about guys that don't fit, chemistry is a lot more important than guys who can play. I mean, yes. A lot of people can play great, but it's hard to sound great together.
Yeah, you got to get in the same car and traffic.
Yeah.
And talk and eat in a restaurant, and you're tired, and you got to like these guys somewhat. And that was the thing with Jay Uvina, was that he just got divorced, and he came in and played like God. He just beat those drums mercifully. And I thought, he's a pretty good drummer. Mm-hmm. And then the manager told us that Graham and Yngwie didn't like him. And then one day, about 2 weeks later, I was driving Yngwie around because he couldn't drive yet. And I said, "What about that guy from Alice Cooper?" He goes, "Oh, man, he's great, man, he's cool." I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." And he said, Jimmy, don't like him." I said, "We never said that." So I pulled over to the phone booth. We called the manager, said, "We're going to meet you tomorrow morning for some business things and some receipts." And had about 20 people standing at his front door that morning. He said, "Here's the deal. We're the band, and chemistry, like you're saying, is a big deal. He's the drummer." And the drummer didn't think that Alice Cooper was a big name enough at that time to do. He wanted Iron Maiden. He wanted whatever.
Right. Well, and then people have to remember that in '81 to '83, Alice...
There was a dip.
Right. It was a non-entity. 3 albums that were sort of...
And we said, but as far as playing goes, this guy, graduated musical college and post-college in Long Island, sings, he plays piano. He's a great addition to what we're doing. And so Jan became the drummer. That's how that story went. The manager took it from there, and when it started, had to watch the guy. Yngwie, at the same time, the record came out, we got along great, we played great. Did the whole thing in about 2 months, that first record. Right. And just slammed it out. We were all in fine shape, slammed it out. It's all we did all day long was play that. And went on tour, started playing. And in Japan, they offered Yngwie an EP deal because he was part of the band to do 4 or 5 songs as a instrumental kind of thing. I thought that's cool, good for us, good for him, And then he just started going sideways with the look at me on TV thing. It's like easy with that stuff, Calm down. We've all been on TV, And he'd never heard of New England, and he just didn't get it, And again, we're trying to say we want to be on the radio. We don't want to be the Carpenters per se, but there's a lot of bands on a radio do just well. Right. And you go down a list of a lot of Judas Priest's on the radios. I mean, they're not heavy. I mean, they're smart, smarter than you're being. He wasn't being smart with the being heavy all the time. It's like, forget being heavy. Play songs people like and can remember and want to play again. Like, Don't Ever Want to Lose You. So we argued about that. And he just became a terror. Doing what you're talking about, him knocking your flash off. He was doing guys on the stage. We were in Tokyo in our fan club at a party after a show one night in a hotel, each in a big table of fans, and Jan grabbed Yngwie's coat and said, "Hey, Yngwie, come over and sign this for this girl." Yngwie said, "Don't ever touch my coat again, man," and just slapped his hand away. And I was sitting going, this can't be happening.
He's good at slapping stuff.
Yeah.
What was it about Vinnie and Yngwie? I mean, you and lead guitarist. I mean, oh my God. I want to get to Steve Vai, but just before I get to Steve, because I think Steve we can cover a good 5 or 10 minutes, because Steve is fantastic. I interviewed him about 2 weeks ago. An incredible talent.
Yep.
But the band disbanded, and back in 2006, the band reappears, and you're not in it.
Oh yeah.
and it goes on. Well, in fact, it's still going on in name, right? Graham is there, and these other guys. Were you surprised, shocked, annoyed, angry? I mean, here you are going blah 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 blah. 20 years goes by, and hey, Alcatrazz is playing at the Orpheum next week. What's that about?
We were more than annoyed.
Yeah,
we were livid. And then he had, the Graham Bonnet band, and they were playing bars in L.A., doing Rainbow songs, Alcatrazz songs,
right,
Michael Schenker songs. Fine. But his guitar player decided that they should use the Alcatrazz name.
Right, bigger brand.
Into that, yeah. And they did. And we tried to stop them in the courts and all that baloney and throwing away money. I lost about $3,000 trying to do that.
And I can, just by looking at you, I can see you're visibly upset just by thinking about this.
Well, it's like, why shouldn't we be in Russia making money and playing Uruguay? Right. I mean, it's crazy. And it burned me that they weren't doing it that well. If he had gone out and was playing with top-notch guys, that might be one thing. And on top of that, they had no keyboard player. There's piping in the keyboards through the PA. That's just terrible. Would you go see Deep Purple with no keyboard player? What would that be? No John Lord, but it's Deep Purple. It's like, that's goofy. So the whole thing was goofy and amateur hour. And it didn't sound good. The guitar player was nowhere near the guitar player of Steve and Yngwie, or Vinnie Vincent, or John Fenn, any of the guys we play with. He's just not up to snuff. Right. And he was saying nasty things about us on all these places, and it was like, what I do to deserve that? So that was an issue for a while. And that's come and gone. Graham now has his own band. He's got a different configuration. Right. Got his girlfriend playing bass and a couple of the guys, and they're doing great, and they're playing around the world, and good for them. So the Alcatrazz thing, that's gone, so good. That was just kind of a thorn in our side. It's like, you're just bringing the brand down into the gutter, I just let it go, just let it be what it was. Don't go out and with that, But of course, people want to see, they're so psyched to see Graham, they overlook that, the general public.
Well, yeah, and in fact, listen, I'll be one of the first to admit that brand often trumps band. I mean, you'll see, whether it's Kiss or any of these bands that have replacement guys, even Guns N' Roses, if they come back, you go, well, hey, as long as Paul and Gene are there, or Slash and what, it's good enough for me. Right.
Whether you go see Styx or you go see...
Right. Well, Styx is a very good example. Or you mentioned Foreigner before, who I saw, I think 3 times last year. One time they had Mick Jones. The other 2 times, Mick wasn't there because he was sick or whatever. So I saw 5 replacement guys. Now, mind you, they sounded great.
Yeah, still
the song sounded great.
Right.
I'm not going to complain.
Right,
but,
they're all players. Yeah, there's just that school of thought. But to be involved in that, it's just it's an opportunity lost kind of thing.
Right. Did you phone Graham at any time from 2006 to now and say, "Hey, come on, what are you doing here?"
Oh yeah.
And I'm assuming it wasn't as cordial as I just sort of set it up, but are you okay with him now?
We're better.
Okay.
better, because he's not doing it anymore. And it's like, that's fine, you know. And he was trying to say, I didn't know your guys' phone numbers and all that. I was like, come on. And
Okay. Well, let's put it this way. Would you like to give Alcatrazz one last, go, and whether it's just a tour or an album, and just get the guy, you, maybe Steve and Graham, and just say, hey, come on, let's go do the Summer Sheds. Let's go open for Journey. Let's go do this.
yeah, I was with Steve back when he was on the G3 tour with
Malmsteen.
Yngwie and Joe, and I was walking out of the arena, just Steve and I, back where the semis and the buses were, and we were laughing. I said, hey, it's kind of fun, I think, to have a tour with both you and Yngwie in the band. And we play all the songs. And Steve goes, that's not going to happen.
I know, but that would be great.
That would be great. People would love it. You know, let Steve play some Yngwie songs. Yngwie had to play some of Steve's Stranger Things. It would be good for everybody. Wow. And I must say that in just around the turn of the century, back in the old days, and we did discuss with Yngwie getting back together again and doing Alcatrazz before this Graham Bonnet Alcatrazz thing happened. Right. Everybody was in the same boat. The 5 original guys were going to go to Yngwie's house in Miami and do it. Graham was in on it, going to write lyrics. Me and Jimmy, I was going to leave. I was living in Detroit, going to go to Florida. And at the last minute, Yngwie's manager pulled the plug and said all the money should be Yngwie's. That typical stupid
manager moves, right?
Yeah, dumb manager tricks 101. So that blew that out of the water. But we were talking on the phone. It was all good vibes. And then a few years later, Graham did the Alcatrazz thing with these other guys, which had morphed from his backup band into Alcatrazz, which is whatever. Right. So that's where that stands. But yeah, it'd be kind of fun.
In fact, yeah, we'll throw it out to promoters, but I'd like to see David Lee Roth do that Eat 'em and Smile reunion tour with Steve, and then have Alcatrazz open all the shows. I think that would be a great sort of summer bill, but hey, who knows, right? Greater fantasies, right? So, okay, Yngwie Malmsteen, first of all, did he leave the band, or was he asked to leave the band?
He was asked to leave the band.
Okay.
And I have proof in the pudding in that the day we auditioned Steve, we also auditioned a guy named Chris Pelletieri, also the same day as Steve.
There's another great name, Chris.
Right. And we chose, and there's a funny story about that with Jim and I. We're looking for another guitar player. The manager didn't want any part of it. Said, you're gonna kill the golden fleece, blah, 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 blah. I don't do it. The drummer didn't want to do it. And myself, Graham, and Jimmy, who started the band, felt we're not getting anywhere. We're not seeing eye to eye on all these other issues. And we're going to change guitar players for the next record. It's not going to be him on the next record, period. And so we saw Chris Pelletieri had an ad in the paper, and Jimmy called up and put up his best Southern accent and said, hey, you play that wing-wang stuff? He says, yeah. You any good? He goes, yeah. Are you real good? He goes, yeah. Got mad. And Jimmy said who we were. He didn't believe us at first. So he came out and auditioned for us, and he was great. Sounds like Yngwie had the same pickup missing on the Stratocaster. But we didn't want the clone thing. Steve came out with this funky guitar he had and didn't play the solos note for note, but he played rhythm guitar. And in the course of this, all of a sudden, it was like, wow. And being a bass player, I don't have to go from like a motorboat because there's no guitar. Yngwie, the guitar is up in the air. The guitar is being thrown at the roadie. It's in 2 pieces. It's out of tune. And he's just flying around the room being out of control. Just wouldn't listen to having some control to what we're doing, And so we auditioned. We told him we had an interview, that Graham had an interview and he could stay home. So he stayed home that day. We took all the gear to Burbank studio, the big room. The manager set up the whole big thing. Wanted to scare everybody that came in there. And we had the whole thing set up. And Steve came in, and we went out to Holiday Inn across the street. We said, we want to be in a band. Had that discussion. So we then got the Ted Nugent summer tour, the Penetrator tour in 1984. We did about 40 shows with Ted. And Steve had just put out his Flexible disc with Guitar Player magazine and the new Alcatrazz guy and all that stuff. That was kind of cool. He was the first they chose him to be the first guy over Jeff Beck and Eric Clapton to do that in the first place. And we definitely saw a diamond in the rough with him. So this guy is going to do something. The manager didn't want to hear it. So just tell you, this guy, you're dumb not to manage both of them because you're doing the wrong thing.
Yep.
And anyway, we went on. We got to tour with Nugent, and Jim and I drove like maniacs down Orange County to the record company to tell him about our new guitar player. And the manager was a half hour behind us in his Rolls Royce. We were both doing about 90 to get there first. We got there first, and he wanted to kill us. We had a big screaming brawl in front of the president of the record company in the office, screaming and yelling.
Which is always good for the career.
Yeah. Dirty laundry, just spill it out now. And the record company said, listen, the record just came out. You're going on tour with Nugent,
Suck it up.
Do the tour with Yngwie, and when we come back, then we'll make the change. And we said, well, okay, we'll do it that. So the next 4 months was hell to be on the road, Yngwie and him throwing beer bottles at fork truck drivers backstage. All those things. You just have to wince and go, I'm not with him.
Right.
I'm not with him. So that's how that happened. So then the manager took his EP thing from Japan and turned it into a solo record, like he'd gotten a record deal on his own. And he didn't. He got an EP thing as being a member of Alcatrazz. And we parted ways, and it's like, fine. And he called up his friends from Sweden to come over, and he paid them $100 a week to live all together in one room.
And do
He
that.
took some money. The manager proceeded to get really, really, really out of control. And the manager's dead now from being out of control. Yngwie's broke because the manager stole thousands from him, which we warned him about.
Another manager 101 kind of trick, though, right?
Yeah. And Yngwie, for all his, said one night, we were in a limousine, he said, yeah, you're my favorite bass player, man. I always rely on what you play. You're my best bass player ever, man. I said, well, good. And listen to what I'm trying to tell you. I'm trying to give you some knowledge here to help everybody, not just me, And he was just so thick. And so he went off and did his thing. And the next time we saw him, actually, he had gone, is when he went out and just got his license and got a Jaguar and crashed E-Type Jag into an oak tree on the way to a liquor store at 4 in the morning. Almost killed himself. He's in the hospital with a swollen brain doing white stuff. And Jim and I walked in, and he had a heart attack. He said, I can't believe you guys came to see me. So we're not bad guys. We're not bad guys,
Yeah, God almighty.
He's a circus act. He's a great guitar player. He's just got his own version of what rock stars do. It's like you're a person first, musician second, rock star maybe third, fifth, or sixth or something. Take that stuff off when you go to McDonald's.
Well, I'll say this about Yngwie. Other than the photo incident at the Roseland, where I've interviewed him a couple of times, and he's been very nice. I'll give him that. I mean, he's been a great interview. I've had,
He can be a great guy when he wants to be.
Yeah, but okay. So Steve Vai. So you saw him as being what was it about him that you saw? Because what he became after Alcatrazz. I mean, when he hit Yankee Rose and he hit all his solo. That's when he became Steve Vai. Then he was just Steve Vai, right?
We rocked him out.
Yeah.
Made him, get a haircut, get some clothes, all that stuff. And he would say, I'm never going to dress like that. Meanwhile, Whitesnake has got feathers, the whole 9 yards. I had this laugh, 3 years later, so I had a laugh going, right, Steve, you're not going to do that. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Sure, but what did you see in him? I mean, was it just incredible talent, period?
Yeah. Musically, he was just so cool. And when like I said, he played rhythm guitar during the verses of the song. There was no just playing the guitar. And then when it came time to go crazy, he'd do some extremely crazy stuff that no one else was doing. It's like, check this out, kids. Here's another guy. You're going to scratch your head trying to figure out these solos at home. Not done it once, we've done it twice. And we thought that second record was going to be we hit our stride. That was Alcatrazz. We weren't Rainbow Junior anymore. We were just Alcatrazz, and we were going to just blow away all the bands, all the Harry bands, all the whole thing. That we were Alcatrazz. We weren't part of that scene. Never were. None of us are from Los Angeles, and we just want to play heavy rock music. Period. And have us have fun and be successful at it. And when the record came out, we lost our manager because he's with Yngwie in Europe. And Capitol Records said, "Where's your guy?" He got no guy, and so they lost the record. Nothing happened. And then we did some spot. We were going to tour Uli Roth for one part for 40 shows, co-headline together. That got blown out of where his manager, another idiot, who later managed Yngwie. And all these things that could have happened, it didn't happen. I remember Steve and I are watching Uli's band down in Long Beach with our mouths open, going, "Holy shit! Look at this guy play guitar. Uli's cool. He's eccentric his way." But he's a very nice guy, and he had Clyde Bunker playing drums for the original Jethro Tull band. I was impressed. I saw the guy in the dressing room. I thought he was, one step away from lung cancer and dying, and he played unbelievably. Right. They all did. He had bass player that could play what he played. He had three lead singers, 2 keyboard players. All kinds of stuff was going on. Steve and I going, "Holy cow!" And we wanted to go on a tour together. It would have been a great act, Alcatrazz and New England, and swap the headlining thing every other city.
It would have been a guitar fan's dream. I mean,
it would have been great. And again, our manager was nowhere to be seen. He purposely let our thing slide to promote Yngwie, and did all this stuff with the Yngwie and Malmsteen. That was his bright idea. All the stuff that happened was him, and because he knew that. Well, Jimmy and I, having been with the Aucoin organization in New York, we knew about things like accounting, bookkeeping, bills, receipts.
Recoupment.
Yeah.
Those wonderful terms. Yngwie, Steve, and Vinnie Vincent, which is the best? I know that's a silly question, but if you had to start a band and you had to pick from one of those three, who's playing with you?
I don't know. I really don't know. On the spot, I don't know. They're all three great. And Vinnie...
eccentricities aside, well, Steve's not eccentric, but they're great players. We'll give them that. They're great players.
It's hard to say.
Who can write a better song?
In some ways, Vinnie's songwriting is simpler.
Right.
And Steve is very esoteric, and he's out to Mars sometimes on some of his things, which is great. That's what he does. He does it great. And Yngwie is locked into his thing. He's got blinders on. He plays the same thing he's been playing since 1984. So it'd be hard to say who would want to play with, but because there's such great guitar players. And Vinnie never got a chance to really play guitar. Kiss wouldn't let him play more than a second in the solos. And when he did the Invasion thing, he started imitating Yngwie and playing a mile a minute. And he was just influenced by the whole thing that happened at that point. Right. And he just was playing. He played like Jeff Beck. He played really cool guitar. He got this thing called chicken scratch, and he plays with a picking thing. And it's just cool. It's like a Jeff Beck kind of sound. And to me, that's impressive.
It's impressive, but I don't know. I think a song needs structure and melody, and stuff has to play together. And
that's what I'm saying. Vinnie's very tasteful. When he played in the beginning, he was really tasteful guitar, like Mick Jones in Foreigner. He's a great guitar player, Mick Jones, but he doesn't go crazy. He just plays boop, boop,
plays
boop.
for the song.
Yeah, it fits the song. Same with New England. All the solos in New England rip. There's some ripping solos in some of those songs, but they all fit the songs. Every song is different. There's no New England song that sounds the same. And there's some bands that you see that, you see 4 songs, you've seen the whole band. It's the same 4 songs, the same, lyrical thing. Hey, mama, mama, boogie, boogie, you're gonna rock, hey, baby. And that's all they do all night long. It's like, that's fine for a party or so, but we want to be more musical than that, because we all love King Crimson and the Moody Blues and ELO and all that kind of stuff. So
there you go. So let's remind folks to head over to GaryShea.net. But Cooper Shea.
Yep, hit us up on Facebook, and there's links to Amazon, and there's YouTube videos and of things.
And of course, there's New England. You did shows, I think, 2013, 2014.
Yep, sold out, did great. NewEnglandRocks.com. You can buy our new vinyl single there, as well as a digital download. And the band is still together. New England is together. Right. Just right now, there's another hiatus thing going on. And in the meantime, I've done my thing with David, done the Cooper Shea thing. And yeah, go check it all out. I think people would hopefully like it.
I think people would like it, and maybe New England can open for Kiss at some point again, just one last time, just for old time's sake. And then quickly, just before we wrap up, of course, Bill Aucoin has passed away. It's we know that. Any words about Bill, just in terms of
Great guy. We were great guy. I mean, we'd be out till 4 or 5 in the morning doing it. We'd go to the office the next morning at 10 o'clock, dragging our feet. He'd be in there with a brand new suit on, impeccable, doing business with people from Hollywood and doing movie deals and stuff. And like he had never had a beer in his whole life. I was impressed by that. Once we were in Washington, D.C., and we were in a restaurant going crazy, and he's doing his funny stuff and licking whipped cream up my girlfriend's breasts and things, and he's a big guy. And these two admirals in full dress admiral uniforms left their wives and came to our table to party with us because of Bill Aucoin.
Yeah, he will.
So he has that kind of magnetism. When he was 12, he got arrested for the FCC for having his own radio station.
Yeah. Definite entrepreneur before that was the cool thing to do. You gotta love Bill. Bill's great.
Yeah, he was doing film when he was in college. He was invested in the stock market, made money, invented a film company in New York. Did a lot of TV commercials. It failed, and that's when he met Gene and Paul. And he financed the whole thing on his American Express card.
Yeah. He
and Sean and the band, and they did a great thing. So he's a great guy. I wish it's too bad he's not here anymore. He's just a good guy.
Yeah, good guy. And, New England, Alcatrazz, definitely we need to hear more from both. And thank you, Gary. Great pleasure.
Thank you.
There you go.
Take care.